Welcome back. You're watching Morning Express. Thanks for staying with us. 50 minutes per 6 a.m. Good morning from wherever you're watching us from. We're taking a look at the latest covered in today's dailies. I have with me Kenya's Ball newspaper, The Standard and the Daily Nation as well. Of key interest, perhaps, is on the front page. Here comes Kenya's most expensive poll with 364 days to go. The countdown just began yesterday, and IEBC has unveiled campaign finance limits for candidates, just giving a glimpse of what to expect in terms of allowance for campaigns going forward. With me, I have Senator Rose Nyamunga joining us via way of Zoom from Mombasa County. In studio, James Gakuya, Member of Parliament, Embakasi North, and from our City Centre studios, Alex Manyasi, who's a governance expert. Gakuya, I was just taking a look at this article on page 5. As we conclude on this money matters, Mr. Chebukati mentioned that it will cost the country 40.9 billion Kenya shillings, a slight increase compared to 2017. And there's a shortfall, according to him. 26 billion shillings is what was allocated by the National Treasury, leaving a deficit of 14.9 billion. We well know of the tough times ahead for IEBC in terms of voter registration. Who knows about the referendum, but the general election as well. Well, what say you about this money issue? Is it as simple as a supplementary budget going forward?
Rogers, let me see. In the matters in the current situation we are in, because everybody must understand that we are in a very critical economic situation. And this tells you that it's not a walk in the park. Even when the electoral commission is just having a clamor of addition, yes, I believe the parliament has a route to go about it. But at the end of the day, whether the parliament will give an approval of that money will be required in liquid. And therefore, that money has to be generated from somewhere. And I'm finding it somehow critical. But because it's an exercise that this country cannot expect not to go for. It is a mandatory exercise that our constitution mandates. Then we have no shortcut. What we must do is to get back to UNIMES. Parliament should sit down, and it should also sit down with the executive, and then they must iron out which are those areas that actually they will be able to slice this money and top up. Because there is no way that you can expect to deliver a free and fair election if this funding is not available. Because one, you have heard from the Electoral Commission, they are saying they cannot have a full month registration because what they have in their kitty is just 500 million. 500 million cannot be able to put them to the whole full month exercise. And then what will happen? It tells you that if the exercise of registration is going to be cut short, it tells you that you are going to deny those who are eligible to register, those who are already achieved 18 years and above. You are going to give them a shot of their chance to vote in the coming election. And therefore, you are rocking them. That's unconstitutional. And therefore, you must look for those resources to enable those people to register as voters, because this is a voluntary exercise which one should not be locked out of it. And therefore, there is no choice. The parliament, because it is a budget-making process, and the executive must sit down, must look for where greener areas that they can chop, they can slice money from, and make sure that they fill the gaps so that the exercise for the whole exercise that actually the Electoral Commission is supposed to do, including what we call what we call election education down to the people. All these will require money, and there is no shortcut. Therefore, it is high time that we must get to adjust ourselves and know which areas we must slice and fill the gaps.
Okay, even as we talk about slicing, Manyasi, we've come into focus of being one of the countries with the expensive elections, quote unquote. Let me quote Chebukati right now. He said in Kenya, print ballot papers with 9 security features because of trust issues. I wish we could have trust, and this would significantly reduce the cost of the election, because having 6 sets of 25 million ballot papers is quite costly. What say you about the cost, not just of campaigns, but running elections in this particular country? Briefly.
Yeah, just and the chair on that matter is right, in the sense that in the Kenyan scenario, if you attempt to make any ballot papers that do not have a lot of security features, trust me, Kenyans will come up with their own ballot papers and produce them on the day of the election. Chances are that the lights will go off and people will tamper with or replace the ballot boxes. So that's one thing that is for a fact. However, if that is the major concern and it adds to costs, and we know it does, then why are we still insisting going paper? We need to think about an opportunity where we can go as digital as possible. Yes, we know that that issue was a bit of an issue in the US general election that happened last, that elected Joe Biden. The issue of electronic voting has always been an issue, and the aspect of not using physical ballot papers and coming to a polling station is always a challenge. But I think there are many other ways of looking at ensuring that we are not spending too much money on an election which is one day, and then we move on with their lives. And the worst part of it is that we spend so much money and yet we never seem to have credibility in our electoral system. I say that because elections in Kenya are always being contested. Then we need to have a conversation as to, is it, I do not think that it's about the security features on the ballot box. I do not think that it's about the integrity of the process. I think it's all to do with what is it that we don't do right. For example, a very classic example is why, like what happened in the last election, you import equipment, you calibrate them, you train people, and then ultimately you do not use all those equipment in some places. So that then opens a window for those people who want to misuse the system to actually do. The second thing is that the election, especially in the Kenyan context, just giving reference to the last election, it's always about the server. It's always about what has been voted versus what has been transmitted. So if that is where the issue is, if we're able to man the polling station well, which we have always done, then what is it that we need to do more to ensure that the electoral transmission of results is actually ends up being the credible election results that then we expect all of us. So you see the departure from the ballot paper and the polling station to the transmission of results is where the issue is. And so there must be a conversation around what is it that will make this election results be acceptable. What is it that will reduce the contestation of the results? And that answer lies in IEBC starting now. So if it's about IEBC looking for enough resources, then they need to start now about voter education, about voter campaigns, making sure that the voter is aware of what to expect. But most importantly, once the voter has done their bit and they have cast their vote on the ballot, then what is it that will make sure that the voter is comfortable that their vote actually counted? So you see, these are things that, and our democracy is a bit still low, in the sense that unless we have conviction of the conviction of the voter that the election was done, carried out properly, then we'll always have challenges with the voter being told that the election was stolen, that there were malpractices in the process. And so we will always have challenges at the end of the day, however much money we spend on these elections.
Free, fair and credible elections, I think that's the goal, but more details on election spending and the depth the candidates' pockets may matter or not if Chebukati enforces those limits on campaign spending. More details on today's dailies. Make sure you grab yourself a copy. Senator Nyamunga, let's talk about something that has been of key focus of recent days, and it's all to do with this Turkish national who just yesterday was quote-unquote deported from the country. And the Daily Nation quotes the tweet by Deputy President William Ruto right here. And he says, just talked and apologized on behalf of the government to Aydin, now in Turkey, who was politically arrested, tortured and falsely profiled as a terrorist, but later asked to fly out not to shame those involved. Political pettiness is expensive and dangerous and will destroy our economy. Shame. So what's your take on this? Is the criminal justice system being skewed to settle political scores? Or is this just a case of the long arm of the law? What say you about this?
Yeah, but just allow me, before I go into that, just to make one comment on the electoral process. If you may allow me, what I would say is that the IBC should understand that in whatever venture that somebody gets into, there is always what the budget, and there is always action, and then there is a variance. I believe that IEBC can do with much less than what they are asking from our past, and already mentioned by my colleagues, that yes, you can be given money. It is not about the money that you want to spend on a process, but it is the idea of making the process very simple and open and be transparent. So the moment that one is achieved, I don't think Kenyans will have a problem even with features. We'll not even be looking for very expensive ballot papers. And secondly, we can also go digital when it comes to registration. My party, ODM, has embarked on registration, and we are doing it digitally. You do it from the comfort of your phone. So if a party can do that, why can't a whole government agency just not do a registration? Why do you want to post clerks all over this country that you are doing a registration of members to vote? So IBC should learn to think out of the box and also to be prudent in the way they use resources. And I believe if it was a woman sitting there, we would spend like a half of that. If the development world is spending about 200 shillings, that is $2. Why are we spending over 2,000 per voter just to go recklessness on the party? They should rethink. The budget is there, we can be given, but do you even deliver what is credible to Kenyans? Why are we fighting every time we have an election? Why are you not being open and simple? So those are the questions that we should be asking before they ask for so much money. Now, going to the next question that you asked me to make a comment on is on the issue of Ayub, this Turkish man who, from records and from what we know, has a questionable character. But what is more critical is the fact that the DP is actually communicating and making a tweet on such an issue. I think the DP belongs to the Jubilee government. He has not resigned. People have asked them that if they are not happy, they should step aside. They have not stepped aside. They said that they were given the mandate by the people of Kenya, and it's only the people of Kenya that can remove them can remove him. But you cannot have a government run by two different people. Government must be run by one person. And the issue of insecurity of anybody who steps into Kenya, from what we have heard a lot about this man. We don't know the truth about it. We believe that very soon the government should be able to tell us the truth about this man, his background. Is he of questionable character? Has he been associated with terrorists? Has he entered this country without his passport being stamped on 2 occasions? Are all these things real? So those are now the questions that are lingering in our minds, and we need to know the truth about him, about all these things. But I want to fault the DP for making such a comment from his own government. The government is doing this the deportation has been done, and then he has a separate communication directly with the same man. It doesn't matter whether that was his guest or not, but at least the security of Kenya is very critical to all of us. And for a government to deport a person, there must be issues that of concern to the country, to the security system. And instead of waiting to get to the truth of the matter, we get such twists. Then we wonder if the DP really belongs to the government or he left, but he doesn't want to leave.
Okay, well noted, Senator. Gakuya, perhaps add your voice to this particular debacle that Kenyans have seen in terms of the weekend-long controversial detainment of this particular Turkish national. Now he has been deported from the country, and the government has been tight-lipped so far in terms of this deportation process, but the DP has definitely given his take on that, swiping or taking a swipe at the government after that particular Swift Dawn mission that caught the lawyers flat-footed. Your brief take on this.
Roger, this matter has been in the public domain from that particular day that the Deputy President was denied a permission to leave out of this country to Uganda. And not forgetting that that Turkish friend was in his midst, and actually that was the right time for that Turkish suspect to be arrested. No, I don't think that this other drama is of any necessity, because the Turkish person was at the Wilson airport at the time of being allowed to leave from Wilson airport to Uganda. And then the Deputy President was left behind. Then if the suspect was the main issue, then he ought to have dealt with him at the spot, but not this afterthought. I can tell you the rest of the drama is afterthought and nothing else. Because if the Kenyan security was serious enough that actually they have a suspect in the midst, how do you allow the suspect to leave out of the Kenyan land to Uganda? And then you start now doing what we call witch hunt search all over, and then waiting him to come back. Why do you allow him to leave the country in the first place? It tells you that the decision was not arrived. Okay. This was just an afterthought. And what I am reading in this particular one, the embarrassment was only to embarrass the Deputy President. And let me tell you, the battle is, yes, probably this Turkish person is being seen as a good connection, either in terms of maybe funding routes or anything else. But I cannot believe that, in fact, the Turkish embassy did give a very clear response that the man is not a suspect. And that is okay. If your country has given you a green light, whoever should know you more than your country. Okay. And in this particular melee, I am just seeing what I can call just a cat and mouse kind of battle. Okay, yes.
Okay. And I think your argument might be buffered by the fact that he holds a work permit issued by the Kenyan Immigration Department. And as you mentioned, the Turkish embassy hadn't given a red flag in terms of him having a criminal record. But Manyasi, quite briefly, away from this particular story, something else that is of concern of Kenyans is the resumption of full capacity in PSVs. From where you sit, was this move a little bit too soon, bearing in mind the ongoing vaccination drive in the country, or was this a little bit too late, bearing in mind that SGR is carrying full capacity as well? How do you look at this in terms of lives and livelihoods, that important balance?
Yeah, just that to me, that pronouncement was a bit of a surprise in the sense that when you start allowing full capacity in public transport, then you say that a church will not have full capacity. And then you again say that people need to keep social distancing in other sectors of the economy. That's a bit confusing to me. I say that because is it that there are too many interests in the transport sector such that someone is rushing to open up that sector and not other sectors. What that does is that I saw Chris Obure with the sector players, and they were making pronouncements like self-regulation and things like that. And I was, at the back of my mind, I was wondering how they're going to self-regulate on a matter that the people or the crew may not even have a lot of understanding about. One of the other things that we need to be more careful about is if you look at the Delta variant, for example, aspects like temperature, by the way, are no longer a confirmation of someone having COVID. So in the absence of things like temperature and things like that, then you will expect things like social distancing, wearing of masks, washing of hands, sanitizing. Those are the only things then that will prevent someone from catching COVID. And so it's a bit unfortunate that we opened the industry too soon, and it's about time. And now that becomes even clearer why the clergy, for example, has been saying it's unfair to keep closing the churches, to keep saying that you hold at a certain capacity, when things like matatus, which have almost zero control in terms of how they manage people being in matatus now, are going to be opened in full. But having said that, I guess the aspects of COVID, we are probably at the worst time than we were before. I say the worst time because the new variants that have come into play are even more dangerous. We hear they can spread much faster. And so ultimately then we need to be a bit more careful, unless, of course, the intention is to allow people to mingle and have them spread, have the disease spread, and by extension achieve herd immunity. If that is the secret weapon that the government is using, then that would be a different matter.
All right.
The aspects of vaccinations, for example, we know that we may not be achieving even 5 to 10% vaccination of the Kenyan population anytime soon. Then there are ambitious plans by government to vaccinate as many Kenyans as possible. But then the question is, what comes first? Do you vaccinate a larger population before you open up like the UK did, or you start opening up even before you attain a critical mass in terms of vaccinations? So you see, those are the balancing acts that must be done properly, and therefore the timing of when you open up certain levels of economies, the timing must also make sense in terms of what are the critical numbers that you need to have vaccinated before you get to that point. I will imagine that the aspect of vaccination will have come sooner, before the aspect of starting to open up industries like transport, which all of us know, especially in towns during rush hours, it's a tall order for anyone to say that they're going to do self-regulation.
Okay, yeah, it definitely will put your focus on the implementation part, as with the COVID-19 protocols, which must be strictly observed. Remember, you might be tired of this pandemic feeling, but the virus is definitely not tired of you. So stay safe, mask up, wash your hands, and if possible, social distance. Allow us to take a short break right now. When we come back, I'm still joined by my panelists. We'll talk about the latest political intrigues in the country. And I tell you, with 364 days to go, it's set to get heated from now on. We'll take a look at some of the issues that will play key part in this particular polls. IEBC unveiled the campaign finance limits for candidates, giving a glimpse of what to expect. Well, the 2022 polls come at a heavy price. Issues versus agenda. That next. Stay with us.
This is KTN News.